Wednesday, April 30th, 2025 arrives in Los Angeles like a velvet hammer. Its early morning light slicing through Forrester glamour to expose every simmering secret and unspoken longing that has been cultivated in hushed corridors and candlelit bedrooms. Ridge Forrester stands in his office, suit jacket draped over a sketchbook he is too distracted to finish, replaying his father's runway provocation in an endless loop behind his eyes. Eric's thunderous declaration that Ridge belongs with Brooke, that denying that truth is like turning away from the sun and pretending darkness is enough, echoes inside him just as vividly as the applause that swallowed the show the night before. He remembers Brooke's dazzling walk, the way her confidence consumed the catwalk until even the spotlights seemed to bend toward her, and he remembers the gasp that slipped from him, unbidden, when she turned and smiled. And then the guilt. Taylor's patient devotion, Taylor stepping into the backstage chaos with her eyes lit by pride for his triumph, Taylor clicking the celebratory champagne flutes together while believing that glow on his face belonged to her. Ridge has pledged himself to Taylor, and he is not a man who treats vows lightly, yet the pull of Brooke has always been tidal, and now Eric has reopened that gravity with a father's blunt conviction. The tension ties itself around Ridge's ribs as he scrolls through messages from both women, Brooke offering a gentle sleep well. RJ said you looked happy tonight, and Taylor asking what kind of tea she should bring for a post-show debrief. Each vibration of the phone feels like a hammer stroke to the vows he thought were unbreakable, and by mid-morning the great dressmaker is reduced to pacing in restless circles, as if locomotion alone could outrun a heart caught between two constellations. Down the hall, Will Spencer drifts through Forrester Creations with the eager uncertainty of a young prince studying a foreign court. He trades polite smiles with interns who know him only as Bill Spencer's son, but are already anticipating the trouble that follows the Spencer name like a shadow at high noon. Electra Forrester, newest scion of the family and hungry to prove she is more than a Fashion Week novelty, spots Will lingering near the fabrics library and seizes an opportunity. Their conversation begins with harmless, youthful banter. Will jokes about Electra's preference for dangerously sheer silk. Electra teases him about the Spencer Yacht Club lifestyle, but quickly switches lanes into something electric when Will confesses he is scouting inspiration for a sustainability pitch to his father. Electra's eyes sparkle. An alliance with a Spencer could catapult her own ambitions beyond standing in the wings of the main Forrester line. Around them, seamstresses carry garment bags and sample boards as if unaware that two names, Spencer and Forrester, carved into the marble of Los Angeles commerce, are quietly sketching a new future in the margins of a bolt of ocean blue charmeuse. Electra suggests a tour of the eco-friendly dye room. Will agrees with a grin that is both boyish and cunning, and they disappear together down a corridor that once belonged exclusively to whispers of couture but now thrums with the low heartbeat of corporate intrigue. On the opposite side of town, Liam Spencer wakes in a hospital suite designed more like a boutique hotel than a place for bleak prognosis, but no minimalist decor can disguise the truth printed in bold black across his medical file: inoperable brain tumor. Progression uncertain. Options dwindling. He lies still, fingertips tracing the jagged edge where fear meets determination in his mind, and wonders how many decisions a man can make when every new sunrise feels like it could be his last. Steffi has slept in the visitor's chair again, her dark hair fanned across her shoulders, one hand curled around Liam's blanket like a vow, and Finn hovers at the doorway, physician composure fractured by the jealousy he is trying so hard to quarantine. The triangle has always been volatile, but illness sharpens every emotion into something diamond-hard. Finn's protectiveness has morphed into territorial urgency, Steffi's loyalty into guilt-tainted tenderness, and Liam's love into a desperate need to matter, to be present, to be remembered. As morning rounds end, Finn gently requests a moment alone with Liam, and Steffi heads for coffee she will forget to drink. Finn's voice remains clinical, yet every word wavers on the edge of personal. He explains experimental protocols in Zurich, hints at timelines, reminds Liam that decisions must be swift. Liam listens, nodding. But his eyes drift to the doorway where Steffi is laughing at something on her phone, a sliver of life that looks almost normal, and the knowledge that he could be erased from that picture in a matter of months slams through him with more power than any painkiller. He thanks Finn, promises to consider the trial, but his mind is already racing ahead to letters he needs to write for Hope, for Beth, for Kelly, for anyone whose future might intersect the space his absence will carve out. Meanwhile, Katie Logan steps lightly across the mezzanine at Forrester, drawn by the unmistakable rhythm of secrecy vibrating from Zen's workstation. She pauses behind a half-closed door just as Zen's question slips out. "Do you actually feel anything for Carter, Daphne, or is this still about the plan?" Katie's interest sharpens to a point. Daphne Rose's husky reply is half-whisper, half-purr. Carter is a pawn. Zen. You, on the other hand, know exactly how intoxicating power can be when sprayed in the perfect dosage. A faint clink, the telltale sound of a perfume vial hitting metal, pings through the silence, and Katie's stomach churns as pieces align with ruthless logic. Carter's sudden fascination with Daphne, the string of colleagues singing her praises after a single lunch meeting, the air of heady euphoria that seemed to cling to her every entrance, none of it had felt organic. But Katie had assumed it was simply Daphne's magnetic charisma. Now the truth gleams like poison in Katie's mind. A drug, a synthesized pheromone, or worse, weaponized in a fragrance disguised as a luxury scent. No wonder Carter practically floated when Daphne brushed a single mist of that elixir across her collarbone. Katie's protective instinct roars to life, because Carter's heart is still fragile from Quinn's betrayal, and none of the Logans have forgiven themselves for how that story ended. She bursts through the door, startling Zen and Daphne into silence, and she fixes Daphne with a glare cold enough to shatter glass. "What exactly are you spraying on people, Daphne? And how many bottles did you unload at last night's show?" Daphne's lips curve in a remix of innocence and disdain, but Katie keeps pushing, voice rising like a warning siren. Zen stammers an apology, trying to defend his partner in design, yet the damage is done. Katie has already texted Carter, and by the time the confrontation spills into the corridor, half the executive suite is whispering about Daphne's love potion. In a single noon hour, Daphne's empire of seduction begins to implode, foundations buckling under corporate ethics clauses, potential lawsuits, and the looming thundercloud of Steffi's involvement, because if Steffi knew and sanctioned the scheme, the entire Forrester throne could tremble. Back in the Patriarch's office, Ridge arrives to find Eric perched at his drafting table, unfolding a bolt of raw silk like an oracle revealing omens. The air between father and son crackles. Every shared glance carries the weight of decades of childhood lessons, of loyalty tests, of moments when Ridge outran his father's expectations and times when he fell devastatingly short. Eric looks up, gentle but unyielding. "You can love two women, Ridge, but only one of them is in your soul's architecture." Ridge bristles, yet he can't completely mask the flicker of relief that someone else has articulated the war raging in his chest. He counters with the promise he made to Taylor. How after all the heartbreak she deserves security, how his children need the peace of a stable home, how Brooke trails collateral damage in her wake no matter how pure her intentions. Eric listens, then sweeps the unfinished silk aside. Commitment is admirable, but self-deception is fatal in fashion and in life. You can draft a suit that looks flawless, but if the pattern is cut against the grain, it will never hang right. Taylor sees the brilliance in you, but Brooke is the grain. Ridge recoils as though struck, Yet he hears at the tailoring metaphor, the unavoidable rightness of Brooke in his design. He tries to respond, but the words stall in his throat like stubborn thread. Eric's voice softens. Figure it out before you tear the family apart again, my boy. Then, with the quiet authority only a Forrester patriarch can command, Eric dismisses him to think. Sunset slides across Beverly Boulevard in violet streaks, gilding the day's wreckage in melancholy gold. At Spencer Publications, Bill receives a call from Will about sustainable couture collaboration and raises an intrigued eyebrow. This is the sort of hybrid play the competition won't see coming. At Forrester, Electra finishes drafting a mock-up of recycled metallic yarn bodices and labels it Project Convergence, her initials and Will's side by side. In Katie's office, a legal team is already drafting a statement about unauthorized chemical agents, their language cautiously distancing Forrester Creations from Daphne's personal liability. Carter reads the draft with a cold prickle along his spine. Trust, once splintered, is almost impossible to restore. Daphne herself is in a boardroom flanked by 2 attorneys, her perfume confiscated, her future at Forrester now a Jenga tower 1 block from collapse. Steffi, notified mid-strategy session, rushes toward the crisis, eyes flashing with a mix of fury and self-preservation. If Daphne flips and implicates her in any knowledge of the drug, the Forrester-Finnegan empire could bleed credibility overnight. In the hospital, Liam smiles weakly at a drawing Kelly made stick-figure daddy with a glittery gold crown and fights the rising tide of dread long enough to text Hope a simple request: bring the girls tomorrow, if you can. I'd like to tell them a story. And in a quiet residential street glittering with expensive cars, Taylor exits her SUV clutching herbal tea and a portfolio of designs she wants Ridge to critique for her new mental health fashion initiative. Unaware that the man she loves is on his balcony staring out at the cityscape, whispering Brooke's name like a prayer he's still ashamed to utter. Night swells around Los Angeles, and every character, scattered across penthouses and hospital wings and design studios, feels the precarious tug of fate tightening. Ridge's decision, Liam's mortality, Daphne's exposure, Katie's defense of family, Electra and Will's budding coalition, each thread vibrates on the verge of snapping or weaving into the next chapter of the Forrester saga. Somewhere a perfumer locks a lab fridge containing one last vial of the irresistible formula, even as forensic chemists prepare warrants. Somewhere the runway where Brooke's triumphant strut stole the show stands empty, but the echoes of that moment still pulse in Ridge's heart, louder than promises, stronger than logic. Tomorrow will crown victors and carve casualties, but tonight Los Angeles holds its breath, and the bold and the beautiful move as pawns and kings in a game that no one can afford to lose.